Lots of Disney Movies with the Hearts.
I'm Kelly.
I'm David.
I got no fun intro this week. It's Return.
It's Return to Witch Mountain from 1978.
He's the boy with intergalactic powers.
He's dangerous.
Others. She's his equally far-out sister. They find themselves pitted against each other when they return from Witch Mountain.
Yes, it is.
And this movie's a doozy.
I have a lot of mixed feelings about this movie.
So do I, because it's kind of it's like a two-faced movie or something.
Yeah, like I was hoping for like that amazing 1970s Disney cheesy magic.
Wait, you didn't get any of that?
Well, but it's not. It was missing some things.
It was definitely missing plenty of things.
But I will say, and I got so delighted when we were done watching this movie because it was really bothering me what movie I had seen. Because last week I was like, oh, I feel like I might have seen this. There's a sci-fi thing and there's two kids and their siblings and they put their hands, and I was like, the little girl looked like Elizabeth Moss. Well, guess what? So what I watched was a 1995 TV remake by Disney of the first one of these movies, and it stars a young Elizabeth Moss.
There you go. That actually makes some sense.
So I figured it out, and I was delighted. So we won't be watching that, but now I kind of know the plot of the original one.
I thought that the kid with glasses and the earthquakes, I thought he was like Corey Feldman, but it wasn't.
Yeah, So I thought a couple of those kids were like, oh, they look kind of familiar, but no, they don't.
Nope.
There's no familiarity.
Yep.
I mean...
Really, none of these people, I guess, other than Betty Davis and Count Dooku, have any kind of
It's really funny that you referenced Christopher Lee as Star Wars, but immediately I was like, oh, it's... What's his face from Lord of the Rings? Sauron or whatever.
I haven't seen Lord of the Rings, though. So.
Oh, okay. See, that's where I recognize him from, but I also recognize him from Star Wars. But immediately I was like, oh, Lord of the Rings. So obviously the two main villains are really famous actors.
Oh, yeah. Super. And, really, they're the main characters, because otherwise you're just left with Tia as a main character, because Tony is not a non-factor. But before we get any further, you should read the synopsis.
Oh, yeah. I have it pulled up. So, Return from Witch Mountain, 1978, classified as science fiction family action adventure. Los Angeles teeters on the brink of disaster when two greedy criminals manipulate a boy's supernatural powers for their own devious gain. But the boy's sister and a streetwise band of truants join forces to try to save the city from destruction. That is probably one of the worst descriptions I've ever read.
I don't know, though. It's accurate to a point, but...
Save Los Angeles from the brink of destruction? Oh, you mean the last, 5 seconds of the movie?
Yeah. But, you don't want to reveal that they kidnapped a kid and, drugged him and...
Yeah, we'll get into all of the questionable actions by adults in this movie towards children.
Yeah. You mean all of them?
Mm-hmm.
All of their actions? Yeah.
Yeah. So the director really has only done a slew of B movies, and that's it.
A slew. This dude has done a mountain of B and C level movies and TV shows.
Would you say it's a witch mountain?
Maybe. He has done a ton of crap.
Correct, sir.
Yeah.
Very experienced director, which is fine. Because I don't think the direction was the problem with this movie. I think the writing was probably most of the problem with this movie.
Maybe the special effects?
Well, the special effects, they didn't spend any money on this movie.
No, this came out 1 year after Star Wars was released, so...
Yeah, and it was hilarious. The special effects were hilarious.
Oh my god, they were so bad.
They were bad, but they were funny.
So bad. Yeah, no, the writing was pretty bad. The dialogue was awful.
Mm-hmm.
The story is weak, whatever, but the dialogue was, for me, the worst part of this movie.
The story is like every other 70s TV show. Every single one of those TV shows had an episode about mind control and this kind of stuff. Like,
Yeah.
this was a well-beaten path in the 70s.
And this is towards the end of the 70s.
Right,
so.
that's what I'm saying. It's a well-beaten path at this point.
Although I feel like the first one would probably be better than this one.
I would hope, imagine so, right? Yeah. This to me seems like, because you notice that the writing, like some other dude wrote it based on this guy's characters.
Right.
This to me seemed like it was purely a money grab movie.
Well, sure. I mean, it's probably in the same way that when we watched The Monkey's Uncle, that we didn't know was a sequel at the time.
Right.
Is a sequel.
And it is basically The Monkey's Uncle.
Even has mind control.
Yeah. The Monkey's Uncle and this are similar, other than this one has one contiguous story throughout the whole thing.
And it doesn't have a killer theme song, so that's missing.
Okay. This doesn't have a killer theme song. But this has killer 70s brown chicken, brown cow music.
Yeah, like 70s.
All through it.
Yeah, it's like 70s cop, disco,
funk,
porn music.
Yeah, it's awesome. Like, you can tell what's going on in this movie the whole time just by the music, which is hilarious. Because there's also the really suspenseful music in the suspenseful parts.
Yeah.
This movie, they've really knocked that out of the park.
Okay, so 70s beats aside, though, it's so overall, what did you think about it initially? What is your first initial thought?
A very entertaining bad movie.
Was it that entertaining though?
The first half was terrifyingly bad. I was pissed, but the second half wasn't that bad. The second half, it actually started to make some sense.
Yeah.
And pick up steam. Like, I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of good. Tia ends up being a pretty good main character.
So where do you consider the turn in the movie? At what point was it?
When they went to the museum.
I would say that's probably fair.
Yeah, everything until the museum was crap. Other than maybe the earthquakes. The earthquakes are pretty funny.
See, I don't even remember what happened before we get to the museum, so we're going to have to talk through it because
So that's what I'm saying. That's how bad it was.
I've already forgotten, like, 90% of this movie.
Okay, well, we'll go through it. Okay, so let's just start. We'll just nail through it. The movie opens with some horrible
Oh my God.
graphics and credits and cheesy UFO flying into California.
It's the cheesiest UFO. It's literally like what they did is take like a bowl or some sort of like fake
some sort of other saucer
cardboard UFO that they've made, and somebody like held it out in front of the camera and was like in the corner of the camera, so not even like it was on a string, like literally in the corner, and they were like,
and just kind of moved it around. And they land in the middle of the Rose Bowl, which is empty.
Right, because it's not in season or whatever, and
right, but it's always in season because they have like music. It's a huge venue in California. Yeah, it is. And just happens to be nobody there, so they can land a flying saucer on the 50-yard line.
It's so weird, and that's probably some sort of reference to the first movie, I'm guessing.
Maybe
it has to be.
But if not, if you think about it, if you were to land a flying saucer in the middle of one of the largest cities in the world, that is protected on all four sides. It's kind of genius.
Yeah, except for, I mean, like you said, it's never all the way closed, so there would be somebody there doing some kind of security or
you would think
something. And there's two kids that get out of it with Uncle Benny.
Yeah. Uncle Benny sends him off with this cabbie who's all about his tip. And he's driving super wackadoodle, and you don't understand why until way later in the movie.
I don't even still understand why, but you'll explain it to me. But
okay, so we're just going to explain it now because I'll forget otherwise. But later in the movie, when he picks up the dude who turns into a goat,
yeah,
he's talking about how he wants to be a race car driver and how fast his cab is, how much power it has, and that's why he's driving all crazy and fast.
Is that why he's wearing the silver jacket, too?
Yeah, but they don't explain it at the beginning.
Okay, gotcha.
They explain it in the middle, and I was like, oh, well, that explains all the crazy driving he was doing. But they should have explained that.
I just noticed his jacket. Well, and before they even get in the car, they're like leaving the stadium, and then that's when immediately right off the bat they show that these kids have powers.
Right, which I think you're supposed to know.
Well, right, because it's a sequel, but
right.
Yeah, because they can manipulate matter with their minds.
Yeah, as far as I can tell, their powers are infinite.
Yeah,
There doesn't seem to be a limit in space or time on what they can do.
Right. And they can, we find out at some point, I don't remember when, they can talk to each other, like, telepathically, because they're twins or whatever.
It doesn't take long.
Right. But
because they get in the cab, and we go to this scene of these people.
Well, so here's the thing, is that, like, it's never explained, like, where they were supposed to be going. They're supposed to be going to some hotel, but, like, are they going to visit somebody? Or,
yeah, there's supposed to be somebody on the other side.
Right, so that was never explained, like, who was waiting for them.
And why they didn't go look for them.
Exactly, which that was the biggest problem I had with this movie. I was like, who was waiting for them? Why weren't they searching for them?
Why wouldn't they have the address of where they were going or the name, like, so that Tia could have just gone there?
Right.
Like, that was a huge plot hole, and was part of the reason I was so pissed off the first part of the movie.
It didn't make any sense. But
because it didn't make any sense.
Well, and, like, so they're in the cab, he's driving crazy, and then he runs out of gas. And, like, for a hot second...
But it seemed like they were f***ing with him.
Right.
I think they were, because later, after the couple things that we're about to talk about happen, and he, like, puts his can of gas in there, a bunch of gas spills out of the cab as he's taking off.
Right, so they're messing with him, and he pulls over, and he gets out to go get gas, and leaves them in the car unattended in L.A. in the 70s.
Yeah, but that was normal. That would have been totally fine.
I know, but here's the thing.
Actually, you know what was really weird about that is that he didn't make them go get gas.
Right.
That would have been more 70s.
Or he would have been like, okay, get out.
No, you kids get out and go get the gas. Yeah, you go hike and bring it back, and I'll be sitting here reading a porno magazine.
So when he leaves, then in the meantime, I have to, I guess, explain why the part that was so like, okay, right. So in the meantime, then it goes to these people that are clearly villains because they're driving some, like, James Bond British car.
That car is awesome. I don't know what it is. I didn't take a look close enough, but that thing was awesome.
Well, and the music, like, changes, like... That's
what I'm saying. The music will tell you everything you need to know while it's happening.
Right.
And they whip out this mind control device on some dude named Sickle, who's one of the nastiest, most skinny, pockmarked motherfuckers I've ever seen in my life.
Oh my god. Okay, so there were a number of things that were disgusting about these people. So, Betty Davis's teeth.
Oh, yeah.
Good lord.
The cobs of straight corn that she had going.
They were, like, gray.
They were yellow.
Yellow-gray.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Like, I was like... And she had this bright red lipstick...
Oh, yeah.
On her super thin lips that I was like... And I always thought Betty Davis was supposed to be like this, like, beautiful, glamorous person, and maybe she was.
She was. If you look back, I was like, oh, okay, I get it.
Clearly she just smoked too many cigarettes because...
Betty Davis eyes.
Right. Which she did have some kind of eyes.
Yeah. Crazy.
But she's she's older in this movie, but the lipstick with, like... It just accentuated how, and also now it's probably better color definition than it was in the 70s.
It's worse in HD.
Oh my god. Every time she was talking, that's all I could look at was her gray chiclet teeth.
It's true. And she played a great villain as the story went on.
She was great. She was my favorite character in this movie, easily.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fair.
But, so, it's, they're basically, it's her and then Christopher Lee's character, Victor,
who's this evil genius scientist dude.
Right, and so he has implanted this little device onto Sickles' like head, basically.
Yeah, behind his ear.
He's controlling him and telling him to go up to the building, and she starts freaking out and like knocks the thing out of his hands, and so they can't stop him from walking up the building.
After they give him a bunch of orders, said he was afraid of heights, so he just straight walks out the building. Somehow, Tony, the one of the little aliens, sees this long before it happens. He's like, something bad is about to happen to somebody around here. And I'm thinking, if you can see that in LA in the 70s, that's all you'd be able to see.
Is bad things happening to people.
It's like, oh my god, these 18 children are about to be molested all around me.
Like, oh my gosh, there's like 75 prostitutes that are about to get murdered.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're not in like a bougie area.
No, they're in a terrible part.
Right, and here's the thing. Okay, so he goes over and saves the dude, right? Stops him with his mind. And granted, they never show him being able to see the future again because he'd probably be able to see himself getting abducted.
Well, pretty much from this point on, he saves the guy, brings him down to the ground, and...
But, like, he's hovering there, and then he just walks around and is like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And then the people come over because they see him, and they're like, oh, it's that kid. And it's like, why would you think it was that kid? Like, why would you...
I think it was pretty obvious when the kid started walking up.
Right, and they go over there, and they're like, how'd you do that? He's like, I manipulated the matter. And it's like, okay, if you're an alien, why wouldn't you be instructed, like, don't tell people about your powers?
Because they're naive.
And so they abduct him, right?
They shoot him up with some drugs in his neck.
And then, meanwhile, then when that happens, Tia is back in the cab, and she, like, can sense what's happening, so she goes looking for him in the middle of this shady area. And this is the biggest fake thing ever. Like, oh, there's not some random dude that's going to come up and try to get you. Like, come on.
Well, the earthquakes found her before the randos found her.
But, I mean, that was the one part I was like, no, you would have been, as soon as you were alone in that cab, you would have been murdered at some point in there. Like, you just
gotta give it a little time. She got lucky.
God. So basically, she goes out and looks for him, and then she tries to go back to the cab, and the cab driver has come back, sees both the kids are gone, so he's like, well, I'm out of here.
Well, yeah, because he lost his fare. I mean, why wouldn't he leave?
Yeah. And then there's, like...
These goons start chasing all these kids around.
And there's some rockin' 70s jams, like...
There's some real 70s jams going on around here. So the goons, quote-unquote, surround all these kids, and somehow Tia got swept up in that.
Well, because she was, like, walking.
She was just wandering around,
and they, like, intercept her, and they're like, the goons are coming, you better run, so she gets, like, scared or whatever.
Well, yeah, she just starts running because the kids are running, she's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So then she, like, attacks these kids with a bunch of trash cans and trash, which is hilarious.
And they're all, like, rolling on the ground, like, I can't get up. And so then she goes with these kids, the Earthquakes are their names, and they're like, oh, are you in a gang? And she was like, no, and, like, they're, like, confused, because they're apparently these tough kids, but one of them is named Dazzler.
They're, like, the lightest weight gang possible.
And they're, like, what, 9? All of them?
9, 10, 11, and just effeminate.
Well, I mean, and that's the point. They're supposed to be, because, like, later they're like, oh, my mom's going to yell at me. Like, they're trying to be tough, but they're just a bunch of, like, kids, you know? They're just ridiculous.
Kids, yeah.
But basically, then they're going to help her find Tony. And then Mr. Yakamoto, Yo-Yo, which seems like it's offensive.
Oh,
but...
that's pretty racist, yeah.
And, like, this guy was one of the strangest looking people I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was just a little weird.
But I found him very entertaining.
No, he was funny.
Yeah.
So he works for the Board of Education, and he's just driving in this van around LA looking for these truant children to bring them back to school.
Which is, like, one of the sweetest vans I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I guess they did do that back in the day. They did have truant officers. They went and looked for kids around town, because back then, if you didn't go to school, it's not like now where you'd stay at home and, you know, like, play video games and whack off to internet porn. Like, back then you'd go run in the streets and
run amok.
Go get into stuff. It's not like now they'd never be able to figure it out. Or they would. They'd just go to your house.
Then they take Tia to where their hangout. And at first I thought, oh, this is where they live. I thought they were all orphans for a second. But it's just like some abandoned house. And they're like, well, we got to go home now. So she just sleeps there, which there would be like 70 other vagrant people living there, but whatever.
Yeah, but not back then. Like, I can remember going into abandoned houses, and, like, there weren't, like, every abandoned house didn't have, like, 80 drug addicts living in it. Like, You could go into an abandoned house.
I guess they probably still had state hospitals back then, didn't they?
They had state hospitals. They had like all those roach motels. Like there's places for low-income, dirty people to hang out and stay.
I don't think I've ever walked through an abandoned house.
No, it's fun. It's frightening but fun because you never know if like the floor is gonna fall through.
Right. Oh, and then it goes back to like the lab or whatever.
Oh wait, but there's one scene in here or one line in here that can't go by. It's like you can't be tough and educated too, because the kid's talking about not going to school.
Yeah.
He wants to be tough and not educated, so because you can't be both. You can't be smart and tough.
Right. It totally makes sense. Yeah, it definitely had a few gems of one-liners in here because when they go back to the lab and they have Tony hooked up to the machines and his energy is like making him go bonkers, the Betty Davis's character, Leha, whatever her name is. Letha, thank you. What is that supposed to be, lethal? But she...
It's like Lisa with an accent.
Yeah. Letha. But she like is like, oh, this is something illegal, and the good doctor says, my experiments are more important than the law.
Yeah. Basically, him becoming powerful is more important than the law.
And it's just like that typical, like, I'm going to be so powerful. Like, that's his...
Right.
Which we never really see what his exact motivation for that is.
Well, and he's trying to pretend, not even pretend, but just trying to say how moral and how righteous his motives are.
Right. But no, like, why are you like this?
Yeah, and her... motivation is purely cash related.
Which makes sense. I mean, she just wants that money. She wants to, like, go to Vegas because she has, like, a gambling problem, I guess.
Well, yeah, she just has, like, a money problem. She's a rich lady who likes to get it around.
Yeah. And she funded, like, his whole lab, so clearly he swindled her.
Well, it's got to be in the basement-ish of her castle.
Right, but basically, like, so he clearly swindled her, is what I'm saying.
Like, I wonder if that's actually Betty Davis's castle, because that is an impressive chunk of property.
You know, it probably is,
yeah.
And it's probably in LA, and it's probably super expensive.
Yeah.
But basically, then it goes back to where Tia is, and she's alone, but she can kind of see where Tony is. She just sees, like, part of the room that he's in, I guess.
No, it's like a hospital.
Right, yeah. Yeah, because they're, like, and at this point, then they're, like, interrogating Tony about, like, his, like, abilities and all this stuff.
And powers, like, oh, what can you do? And he just tells them.
Yeah, and then Sickle is like, I don't believe this, and this is one of the most wacky parts of the entire movie.
Oh, the gas mask chase?
And he's like, oh, show him, Tony, show him what you can do. So he, like, chases him around with, like, an oxygen mask, and he's like, yeah, it's...
Yeah, and then they basically show that the kid's powers can be used for him to be, like, a maid or a janitor. Stack this stuff up and give us a glass of wine. I'm like,
yeah. Because he's
great.
implanted the same mind control thing on Tony at this point.
Yeah. I mean, he implanted the mind control device, except for it works much better on Tony, which makes no sense because this kid has, like, superpowers. He should be able to easily throw that off. Yet, throughout this movie, he's never even able to sort of throw it off.
No, and this is where I first noticed Betty Davis's teeth. God, her teeth, yuck.
Well, this is actually where her character starts to become borne out.
Yeah.
In the beginning, you're not sure what her character is, but here you're like, oh, she's hilarious.
Yeah, and then it goes back to the kids, and yeah, they're going to the hospitals. They're like, well, we went to all the hospitals. I'm like, oh, you went to every single hospital in LA on foot? Is that what you did?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, buddy.
No, I seriously doubt that.
Well, yeah, maybe just in their part of LA.
Right.
Which I guess would have been like East LA, since the Rose Bowl's in Pasadena.
I don't know where anything in LA is.
That's
I have
fine.
no geographical reference for that. I just know that it's very spread out, and you're not going to go to every single damn hospital on foot.
Yeah, no.
And then what happens after that?
Letha takes the she wants to use Tony for gambling and robbery.
Right.
So she does just that. They
send
out...
She takes him to...
Victor. Yeah, so this is the part... I mean, and this part was super long. The part that we've just gone through was horrifying.
I feel like it was like 40 minutes.
It was probably something pretty close to that.
So this is where she decides she's going to use Tony to steal gold out of the museum because there's apparently a display of like gold bars.
That's in the paper, and why in the museum would they have actual gold bars?
They wouldn't.
Exactly.
I mean, and even if they would, it would be under so much more security than it was.
Well, there's just no reason to have actual $3 million worth of gold bars in a stupid museum.
No, they might have like just the outside layer be actual gold bars, and then they would fill it with nonsense.
Or one bar.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
So they drive up. Oh, because the good doctor has gone to like buy supplies, and so they're like doing it behind his back, basically.
They're like, "Oh, see you later. We both walked you out to the car for no reason. Bye."
And so then they take him and they go to the museum, and this is where I noticed that Sickle was really skinny. It was when he got out of the car, because he was just sickly.
Yeah, he was like disgustingly coke skinny of the 70s.
70s
like,
skinny.
It was nasty.
But basically, they're going to the museum, and I just was thinking, isn't gold, and I don't know if it was different in the 70s, but isn't it like one of the worst things you can steal because it's impossible to get rid of?
No, probably not.
Not in the 70s.
Probably not ever, really.
Really?
Nah.
I thought, and it's like heavy, and it just...
It's super heavy. That was, I mean, it becomes an issue later on.
Yeah, and so basically they're in there, and she's like getting him to create a diversion.
Yeah, cause chaos. Make the stagecoach move. And he's just making this hilarious scene of museum coming alive, and people are like, oh my god, oh, blah, 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 blah.
Did you see the blatantly racist?
Oh, the scalping scene.
Oh my god. So there's like one of the like guards is on top of the stagecoach, and there's like one of the Native American statues with like his arm raised with an axe.
Yeah, crawling up the wagon.
So he rips off his toupee and throws it, and they made like a very big point of it, and I'm like, really?
Yeah, well, it lands on the Indian's axe. Like
that was just not right.
And then so we get all this craziness. Tia, through some clues of seeing through Tony's mind, and the boys help her figure out where they are, so they're headed to the museum as well. And then the gold bars go flying, which is one of the worst special effects in this movie.
And nobody notices it. Like, I understand there's diversion, but nobody notices, like, just floating gold bars one at a time, which is like, why wouldn't you just have him move the whole stack if you're going to do it like that? But
you would think. And they have him go to Mr. Sickle, not stack them in the car, so they just start going flying at Sickle.
Right, and it's like
you can't catch a gold bar because it's way too heavy and way too fast.
So they start banging into the car, and he's like hiding underneath it, and it's like, well, yeah, it's gonna rupture your suspension.
Well, yeah, it's breaking the car apart as it's throwing things at it. And then she gets desperate at the end, has him take all the rest of them all in one haul, dumps it on the car. Yeah, and then the car breaks because if you're gonna steal $3 million worth of gold, you're going to need a dump truck. You should have stolen that first.
Right.
Not your Ford LTD wagon thing, which was awesome. Don't get me wrong, the Woody wagon was rad, but that's not the car for $3 million worth of gold.
No, and then like at this point, Doctor has shown up. Well, first
he went to the house and he figured it out.
And he shows up and he's outside, but then simultaneously Tia and the gang has shown up. They get into the museum without tickets, whatever.
They're like, Tony! Well, I think at the time they got in because the chaos was going on.
Right.
So nobody could really stop them.
And so she goes in there and she's like, yeah, Tony. And then he sees her, he's like, it's my sister. And like, this is what doesn't make sense. Like, if he's being mind controlled and it's so powerful that he can't even stop himself from doing anything, he wouldn't like recognize her, and like he wouldn't like...
You wouldn't think so.
Like, it doesn't go together.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's my sister. And she's like, well, let's get out of here. And they go outside and they see the car is all messed up, and then the doctor is there. So she's like, well, I guess we're just going to go with the doctor. And it's like, you did all that and you're not even going to take a single gold bar? Really?
Yeah, and he's pissed. Like, the Victor is just like irate. He's like, you treacherous, you dummy. You screwed the whole thing up, blah, blah, blah.
I mean,
blah,
and
blah.
he's not wrong.
Well,
like,
but he is kind of wrong. Like, he needed to deliver some money for that. Like, that's what she
Yeah.
wanted, and it could have been done a lot easier than that.
Yeah. And then, so all the kids run out after Tony and they get in the car, but then they see the truant officer. So Tia gets an idea to, like, get in the car and have him chase the other car.
Right, to chase down her brother, who's also a truant. But the funny thing is, to me, is why would the truant officer be near a museum? No kid who's going truant is going to the museum.
No. But, I mean, he just, Disney magic shows up, and then, he's in the car, and Tia is, of course, controlling the car.
Yeah.
It, like, spins around, and he's like, oh, what happened? Oh, well, like, we're just going to go along with it.
Yeah, he's a good foil for this, because he's pretty happy-go-lucky, other than catching kids.
Oh, my God. And this scene of the car chase is just
rad.
It's so terrible.
No,
awesome.
in
a good way.
It is awesome.
It's terrible in the best way, because they're like going down and like they keep basically the car that Tony is in. They keep telling him to like put blockades in there, and she keeps counteracting it. Jumps the car over a train. Like
the train jump was ridiculous. The graphics for that were so bad. It was so hokey.
It was literally like, I don't even know how they did it to make it so bad.
It almost looked like a toy car jumping over a toy train, kind of.
That's probably what it was.
But it also kind of looked claymation,
which will
come back again. And it just didn't make any sense. Like, I was like, oh, okay,
no.
Rad.
And then at this point, so all of the bad people know that there's a van full of children following them. So then their solution is to make the van, at the end of the chase, go end over end over end by shining a sunlight on them.
Yeah, by shining a light in the face of
the driver,
Mr. Yo-Yo,
and all the kids, including Tia. So the car just like spins, I don't know how many times, and is like totaled.
It flips down like a San Francisco style hill.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you can see when it hits the other car and it goes to flip, you can actually see the ramp that they built to have it flip.
I didn't catch that.
Blew the wood part of it. Yeah.
I didn't catch that.
You can see it blow apart down the hill.
Oh my God.
And it flips over just boom, 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 like a washer or dryer down the hill. And everybody would have been dead. Every single person would have died.
Yeah.
On the second tumble.
And all the kids just hop out like no problem.
They're like, oh my God, this is crazy. Well, the door's even open. Let's get out of here.
Mr. Yakamoto just walks out like no problem.
Yeah.
And
nobody's wearing a seatbelt, by the way.
No, nobody's wearing a seatbelt. So they would have flown out the dash. Like, Tia would have been
not
totaled.
necessarily out of the dash, but they would have flown out of the sides. Because when you do flips like that, you start flying out of the side windows of the vehicle. And, like, you get parts of you trapped and cut off immediately. It's nasty.
And meanwhile, the villains are like, oh, yes, perfect. We're so excited that we just mangled a bunch of children. Like, it's just, like, it was so upsetting.
And they're just, like, super happy, and they take off in their super villain car.
Yeah, and they go back to the lab, and there's another gem of a line in here. He said, the doctor says something about, like, my life's work and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you just discovered this kid. How is this your life's work?
You jeopardized my life's work.
My accountants are desperate.
Proved yourself incompetent yet again.
Well, the mind control device, I think, is a part of it. But yeah,
God.
He's mega maniacal. And he's like, okay, I have an idea for prestige and money. And he proceeds to come up with the dumbest idea I've ever heard.
I don't even get it.
Every single movie.
It's
like, no, let's not steal a whole bunch of money first and then do something. Let's have this terrible idea all at once.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, Letha and Victor decide that they need to kill Tia before they go forward.
Well, they don't want to kill her. They just need to stop her at this point. The killing comes later.
They need to kill her, but they didn't.
Which, it's like, if they were smart, they would have put one of those little bugs on her ear, too, and used both of them.
I don't think that they had two. I think that this was, like, all he had. Like,
which is
this
just
was
stupid.
His prototype. Well, no, it's not exactly stupid because, I mean, back then, building anything costed tons of dough.
Yeah.
And was tough.
So basically, then they make Tony lure Tia with his
telepathy,
mind
yeah.
to the house, which is like,
follow me, and she's just totally trusting. Like, I'm gonna ignore everything that's happened so far, and just trust you and follow you.
right. And so he's put her in some sort of gas box.
Well, that's not Sickle first. Puts the chloroform around her face.
Oh,
and
God,
one of the
that's
rapiest.
Yeah, because it like just shows his
scenes.
face blurring out, and I'm like,
Yeah,
okay.
with the cloth and his hand over her mouth, and I'm like, oh, he just raped her after this. And then you find her in this like PVC pipe and plastic tent with gas.
Yeah, but then she they leave. They go to do their plan.
Yeah, he says that he's put her in a comatose state.
But her eyes keep opening, so I'm like, it doesn't.
Yeah, he didn't do a good job because she gets a hold as soon as they leave.
Well, she's also, I think, more powerful than Tony is.
Maybe.
I think she is.
It probably be just because of how everything plays out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she is able to talk to the goat that they have, and why do they have a goat? I don't know.
Well, she tried to talk to the boys first. I think the goat was like an experimental goat.
Yeah.
Like he'd do experiments on the goat, and
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
His life's work. But basically, she mind controls the goat to go get the earthquakes.
Yeah, and then at this point, Alfred becomes the hero of the story. He's a badass. He's like running down the street, running over the tops of cars, jumping on cars.
He boots some guy getting into the same cab, coincidentally, from the beginning, and boots him out and sits in the back seat of the cab because the cab is magically going where he needs to go, and he knew that.
And this is where we find out that the cab wants to be a race car driver.
Yeah, because he's like talking to him, and he's like, yeah, and the goat's like, meh, and like.
Yeah, and he keeps thinking that the goat is a dude with this, meh, meh, and the guy thinks the goat is an asshole, which is hilarious. It's one of the funniest scenes of the stupid movie. It's like, what? You don't like me? Man, what the hell? And it just reminds you that there used to be a time that you could like openly kind of not like somebody and didn't have to be like you're gonna bust your gun out and shoot them.
Right.
Like, you could keep talking to them and like, have a kind of adversarial relationship. It was very refreshing for me.
Well, and then he wipes off the mirror and he's like, "Oh my God, you're a goat! I had no idea." And so he crashes his oh right.
Right after he gets this spiel, he's like 19 years and 11 months. And in just another month, I'll have my gold star safety standard. I've never had a crash. And as soon as he sees the goat, he crashes his car directly into a cop car.
And then the door pops off the side, and the goat hops out. No, the door came completely off the cab car.
No, I know. You see, you think that's like, oh my, like, why would that happen? You don't understand how shitily built 70s cars work.
I guess.
That would happen.
But, wouldn't all of the doors pop off?
Not necessarily. That's how bad they were built, is like, one door might pop off, the back window might fall out if you got in a crash,
Gotcha.
There's a reason you don't see tons of cars from the 70s and 80s still rolling around unless they have a Honda or a Toyota on them.
Gotcha. So, in the meantime, the Letha, Sickle, Tony, and Victor, the doctor, have rolled up to a plutonium plant, which is just okay.
Yeah, a plutonium plant that happens to just conveniently be miles from LA where they would never build one.
Which also only has one little crappy guard gate on front, and that's the only security it has.
Right, and they take the very subtle approach of just levitating the guard gate with the guard into a dump truck that happens to be going out. Mm-hmm. Oh, they take out the very bizarre exterior security scanner satellites too, which don't make any sense because there's movement all around that's not going to pick up anything that they're doing. Right.
And then it flashes back to the goat who's gotten to the boy's house. And at first they're scared of the goat and they're like trying to climb up.
That actually makes sense because city kids would have no context for a goat.
I guess.
And would be scared shitless
But
of a
they
goat.
get over it real quick because they're like, hey, he's got Tia's vest. And I'm thinking, wasn't she wearing her vest in the thing?
I can't remember the NFL player, but he was an inner city guy. And they had the horse on the field for the NFL game. He's like, man, what about that damn horse? Like, and there's like a whole bunch of clips of him being scared of the horse on the field.
That's so funny.
Because I mean, if you grew up in the city and you never left, like,
you wouldn't know.
Well, and you would be nervous because here's this huge animal that you've never even interacted with before.
That's true. You've only seen those big animals behind, like, gates, the zoo, probably.
Or probably not even that. Probably just on TV.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I've been around a lot of horses from being a young kid. I still hate horses.
Well, I mean, horses, when you are up close to them, are kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
Because they're huge. But they're scared, but then they're like, he's got Tia's vest. And I'm like...
Yeah, as soon as he takes the vest, they're after him.
So she left her vest at the house. Is that what it is? Like,
well, it looked like maybe she left her vest and her shoes, even though they didn't really pick that up. But she did leave the house in a hurry because he started talking to her.
She left without her shoes?
I don't know.
And so that's why I was like, wouldn't she have been wearing her vest? Like, it was very confusing.
Maybe not, though. Maybe she was getting ready to go to bed, and then he started talking to her, and she just took off.
Right,
No
but
vest.
she put her jacket on.
She never took that jacket off. That was a sweet
So how did
70s
she get the
power
vest
jacket.
off? Wasn't the vest under the jacket?
Well, I mean, maybe she took the vest off because she was warm or something.
Oh,
and
God, it's so confusing.
put the jacket back on.
Yeah, no, her 70s, like...
Power suit, that thing was rocking.
But it wasn't even, like... At first I thought it was a skirt, and I was like, no, those are, like, gaucho pants. Like,
yeah.
like...
The way she was dressed was rad.
It was like a bright red gaucho power suit.
Yeah.
So basically, they all chase the goat and they make it back, like, and get her out of the bubble. And then she's like, "Come on, we need to find Tony," right?
Right.
And then meanwhile, they're back at the power plant.
And so, but somehow Tia sees the power plant, or at least like the round ball.
Yeah.
So one of the earthquakes is like, "Oh, I know where a ball is."
Right.
And they.
But she can see, like, what he sees, like, flashes of it, right?
Yeah.
But, yeah, and of course it's not the right ball, but they find that out later.
Right, so Gannon Victor's genius plan for fame and money is to have the plutonium plant melt down in the middle of LA for a ransom with a super quick timer. Like, get $5 million in cash together in 10 minutes. It wasn't 10 minutes, but it was like a stupid amount of time. And then give us like safe harbor to the airport. Let us fly away so we can do this somewhere else in the other world. It's like, okay, this is the dumbest plan you've ever had.
Right. Because, and the part that bothered me the most about the end of this movie, well, there was a couple of things that were bothersome, but it's just like the manager of the power plant's like, oh, I guess we have to pay him. It's like, it's not even like the FBI. Like, all these government agencies would be called in and swoop in immediately if something like this happened, even in the 70s.
The government agencies would have already, they live there already. They're
but that's,
there all
that's
the
what
time.
I'm saying. They're just like, and the scientists are just like idiots. They're just like, I don't know what's happening, and, oh, what's happening? What's happening?
To be honest, that actually checks out.
Oh, God, but they were just like, I don't know what to do. And the plant manager's like, guess we got to pay him $5 million. And
which, honestly, in that situation, 100%. Like, you can't screw around with a nuclear reactor.
I know, but it would have been more believable if they would have had some, like, official-looking, like, person doing that, not just like, oh, hey, my name is Jim, I'm plant manager.
Yeah,
like,
I have a lab coat.
No. The plant manager was, like, clearly dressed in, like, a manager outfit.
Oh, yeah, I guess he was.
He wasn't, yeah. But basically, then at this point they go and Tia's like, that's not the ball, because it's, like, a big golf ball is what the kids saw.
Yeah, a billboard. And then they see Mr. Yamamoto again.
Yakamoto.
Oh, yeah, Yakamoto. Well, I keep wanting to call him Yo-Yo because the Yakamoto doesn't come up until later.
Right, and they're like, what's going on? He's like, oh, I'm going to get fired. I wrecked the car and damaged city property. And they overhear, he's like, the only thing that works in the car is the radio. And so they overhear the thing going on at the power plant. And she was like, that's what I saw. Magically, she knows.
That's what it is. That's got to be Tony. Oh, no, because they said something about motion, flow, particle flow.
Matter flow or something.
Matter flow, and it's like, wait.
How would they know that?
Nobody would ever say that, yeah, for one. And that was what got her.
And so she magically pumps up the tires.
Pumps the tires as Mr. Yokomoto is pouring his heart out about why he does what he does.
And
he's
so,
like, I just wanted to help some kids, you know?
Yeah, and like I want him to say, thank you, Mr. Yakamoto. I'm not a thug because of you. And so then he like helped.
Which makes total sense. He's such a nice guy. Like.
And so basically, he gets in the car and he's like, all right, we're gonna go. And they get up there and they just get past in the midst of everyone evacuating the plant. They just drive up. She lifts the gate, and the guards are just like, okay, bye.
We can't. Well, so this was before people adopted after 9/11 the shoot anyone first, ask questions later mentality, which we should go back to this mentality from the 70s of not shooting people ever.
Right.
And letting them go
But it was
through.
just like they didn't even like try to run after them or anything. They were just like,
well, they kind of did, but how are you going to run after a van? Like,
I guess. I don't know.
The press of the gas pedal, you're not catching it.
And meanwhile, when I keep wanting to call him Pete, but when Tony and Victor and Letha and Sickle and the bad guys, when they get in there, they have to get past this guard who's like asking for their IDs, and they just levitate him. So he's been levitated this entire time.
And he has a huge gun on his hip, and he didn't do anything with it, which is once again goes back to my point of that's what you do, is you just don't do anything. And
so they like unlevitate him, and then in all of this chaos, well, before they get there, they're running in there and they're like, I know, where do we go? And the people are like, it's sealed, we can't get in there. And they're like, we know. And then there was something that happened in this part where I was like, oh, what? Okay. That Mr. Yakamoto did. I don't know if you caught it.
Oh, no, where he checks out the Asian scientist lady?
The only other Asian person in the entire movie, and he's like, oh, hey. And I'm like,
that checks out. That to me checked out. I thought it was hilarious.
It was just
He's like, oh, what's up, girl? Hell yeah.
It was just so, like, random.
He's like, you fine? What's up? I thought that was great. I thought it was really funny.
I know, it was just so random. But they get in, and then the guy who was levitating is still there. He's like, y'all need to get me down. And, like, he just knows they're going to be able to get him down. So they do, and then he's like, you can't get past me without ID. So they re-levitate him.
Yeah, and it's just like, dude, come on.
And so they go in there, and, you know, of course they see Tony, and the people are getting the ransom money together, but they don't have all of it. And then basically they start chasing all the kids around.
Yeah, and
like Scooby-Doo style.
But Letha is willing to take the $3.5 million, where Victor's like, I don't compromise.
Right.
Click.
Yeah. But they're chasing all the kids around like Scooby-Doo style. Like,
yeah, why would you have Letha chasing kids?
She wouldn't.
Like, any of those 10-year-old kids would whoop that old lady's ass.
Yeah, no, she won't. Then it's like one of the most messed up sequences I think we've seen in any of the movies that we've watched. Basically, Victor is, because they find, because they go back like to the furnace room, and Tia has found it, and she's been like reversing it.
Yeah. And
her and Tony are like mentally fighting back and forth to have it go up and down, because then the scientists think like, oh, it's working or whatever.
But Tia wins.
And that's why I say she's smarter than Tony. But then the messed up part starts happening, and Victor is like telling Tony to kill her.
Yeah.
And like they have like this thing where they're throwing stuff at each other, and it's like more bad.
She's like, why are you doing this to me?
Why are you using your powers against me?
Well, she yells that when like he tells Tony to pretend to remember her and lure her.
No. She first started saying that when he threw that beam at her.
Oh, that's right. Like the thing that was like going to impale her, and she like blocked it.
Yeah, and suddenly after he tells him, oh, pretend like you remember her, she's like, okay.
And he's like, lure her into the middle of the room and then crush her with that big generator.
No, it's a crane.
A crane, whatever. And I was like, what? And so she walks out, and then he starts lowering it, and it like he stops it because he's clearly mentally like.
Oh, I thought she stopped it.
Oh, maybe she stopped it.
Yeah.
I don't know, but she's like about to be crushed, and she's like, why are you doing like don't do it? And he's like, crush her, finish her, and I was.
Well, and she finally sees him talking into that silver box.
But like, crush her, finish her, like really.
Well, from that old psycho, yeah.
It was so messed up.
So she finally gets it and melts the mind control unit.
Right. And so then he can't control him, and then the box, she gets out, and Tony's like, I don't know what happened, where was I? And
she grabs the little device from behind his ear, like a trick quarter.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, and then he has flashes of everything that happened, and he was like, oh my god. And then, of course, all the adults come in sequence, and they just levitate them up onto this little beam thing.
Yeah, this little beam that somebody had been painting with because there's a paint can up there.
Yeah, and like when they do it to Lisa, she's just like, as she's being raised up, she's like, okay. Like she has no reaction. She's just like, this is happening, whatever.
Yeah, it's a great piece of acting by Bette Davis in that part. And Sickles, of course, now is afraid of heights, and he's flipping out.
Right, so then it doesn't show them like getting captured by anybody. Then it just goes to them being outside with Mr. Yakamoto, and they're like, oh, we're going to fix his car.
Yeah, because she's explaining to Tony, like, oh, he really helped us, and he's really sad. He's like, oh, well, we should fix it. I'll take care of the engine, you take care of the bodywork. Let's go to it. And then there's this hilarious claymation fixing the van scene that is not like anything I've ever seen in any movie or TV show ever
so
before.
Weird.
It doesn't make any sense of like, why is this claymation? Like, why?
Well, and like, if she can, so I guess I don't really understand if she can manipulate matter, why is she also able to make paint magically reappear? Like,
no, that makes perfect sense. If they can manipulate matter, I mean,
I guess I don't
I mean,
know.
really, if you could stretch a little bit of paint to cover up all the parts that got scraped off, it would work.
Yeah, maybe. But
they do it, and it's like, okay, now it's Yakamoto's word against the school board?
Well, they never saw the car. He's like, they never saw it, so I'll just say they exaggerated. And he takes them to the stadium because apparently a whole week has passed in this period of time.
Well, we never actually found out how long they were supposed to be there.
He said, I'll see you in a week when he
They
dropped
said,
him
I'll
off.
see you on Friday.
Oh, I thought he said a week. No,
Friday.
okay. But so they take them back to the stadium, and then all of the kids just go and they like...
They levitate all the kids over the gate, which is funny.
Which I'm like, how are they going to get back over the gate? But whatever.
Yeah.
And
that was before kids were too fat to climb a fence.
Yeah. But they go and they just see the same cheesy flying saucer with, old Uncle Benny there.
Stuck underneath it.
And like they run over, they're like, okay, bye.
Will we ever see you ever again? Well, it's hard to say.
Right, which is like, are we going to have a third movie? But...
Not for a long time, kid. You're going to already be growing up doing coke. Sorry.
But basically... Then they go away in the flying saucer. The kids go back, and they agree to go back to school because they're like, "Do you think we can be as smart as, these two?" And
as smart as Tia and Tony. And yet Mr. Yakamoto's like, "Yeah, sure." It's like, hell no, you can't be as smart as them, you dumb.
And they're like, "We saw a UFO," and he's like, "I don't believe that. I've seen a lot, but I don't believe that." And then he like gets in the car, and they're waving at Tia and Tony. And
but Mr. Yakamoto's the only one that doesn't see because he doesn't take his eyes off the road.
Right, and so then you can see Tia and Tony and Uncle Benny just like waving back at them. Oh, and the goat is in the back seat of the car at the same time.
The goat is really the hero of this movie, and nobody wants to talk about it. The goat is rad.
Yeah, his name is Alfred.
Alfred the goat.
And that's the end.
Yeah, it just ends.
It's something.
It is. So what's your favorite part of this movie?
I think I gotta go with the van car chase.
Of course, the
Like,
car chase is the pinnacle of this movie.
So I did like the part at the museum too, but
The museum is funny. It's fine. I personally, if I'm going to pick a second one, I'm going for Alfred the hero.
oh yeah, okay, that's pretty good too.
Because he's pretty awesome.
In the cab, actually, that part was pretty good.
Well, the whole part of him jumping over all the cars, getting in the cab,
And like it's not, they didn't pick a dog, which would be, or like a monkey even,
no,
which would be like the normal thing you would think about science lab.
it was a goat.
They
and it
picked
was
a goat.
Hilarious.
Probably the cheapest animal they could get for set.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I would go with the van car chase.
Yeah, it has to be. That's really an excellent part of this movie.
Because it has all the people in it. And
Has all the people, has all the horrible cheese of the movie. Like, it really encapsulates the whole movie.
Yeah, it's... God, this... Yeah. As far as songs, I mean, really, you just have the 70s jams background music.
Yeah,
There's not even a theme song, though.
The brown chicken, brown cow, and then the suspense music.
Yeah,
which
like...
is all really good, actually.
Yeah, no, it was fine.
Surprisingly.
It was fine.
The main character, I don't know if it's Thea, or if it's Tia, or if it's Victor and Letha.
It's... Like, that's what I wrote, is like the villains are almost the main characters. Like, Letha and Victor are pretty much the main. Like, I know that it's really about Tia and Tony.
But Tony's not a character in
No,
this
because
movie.
he doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
He's a mind controlled robot,
Yeah.
literally the entire movie,
Yeah.
except for like the first 5 minutes and like the last like 2 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, Tony doesn't register.
No, but I mean.
But I put Tia because she actually carries this movie pretty well.
Yeah, and
She does a really good job.
And she is more powerful than Tony, because she was able to override him when they were fighting. But again, he was under mind control, so maybe she's just more powerful than the mind control device. But also,
Maybe.
he wasn't able to overpower the mind control device. So
Right. And then you have Victor, the egomaniacal, typical mad scientist.
basically the same character he plays in Lord of the Rings and Star Wars.
Yeah. Then you have Letha, the rich gambling hoe who's old.
With bad teeth.
Yeah. Well, back
I'm
then,
never going to forget
in the
that.
70s, bad teeth was just a given at her age.
Oh, God.
And then you have Stricker, just a stickle, a
Sickle.
skinny douche.
Yeah, he was pretty gross. Like,
Yeah.
and he had like pock marks all over his face.
Yeah.
And he was her nephew, right?
Yeah, for
Like-
some reason.
Yeah. So it's
Thug. And then
Yeah.
for side characters, you have the Earthquakes, who are
Dazzler.
just ridiculous.
Dazzler, Muscles, Crusher, and Rocky.
Well, that's good for you for remembering them all.
I didn't. I just had to
think
look
of
on
them as a
IMDb.
team. And Mr. Yakamoto, who
Yeah.
was a pimp.
All I ever wanted in life was all you kids that I put back in school someday visit me and say, "Thanks, Mr. Yo-Yo."
Like,
Well,
as soon as he checked out that chick, I was like, no, this guy's pimping. This guy's getting it.
Yeah, no, he was funny. Yeah, it was just a gem of cast of characters there.
Yeah.
But so, what did you think about the cinematography?
I mean, the special effects were laughable. Like,
They're-
just hilarious.
But they're so realistic.
Yeah.
Like, I
yeah,
really
for
thought
real.
there was a flying saucer.
Yeah. I really thought that van jumped, like, in a perfect arc on both sides of the train, but with no realistic actual... It just went like this. Sorry.
I mean, you said they had ramps exploding, like.
Yeah. For the final downhill scene of the chase, you could see the ramp explode when the van overturns and tumbles down the hill. You can see the ramp. You can see all the wood from the ramp explode.
I definitely did not see that. I
Yeah.
just was focused on, well, there's a van of children just going end over
I mean,
end.
I was thinking about that too, but I saw the wooden ramp explode, which I thought was really funny.
What was
Oh, and for the cinematography, it's just super 70s. Like,
oh my god.
it couldn't be more 70s if it tried.
Low budget 70s.
Yeah, like it just looks so 70s.
It's yeah. What was it? Well, and like when they're in the car and they're just like, ding, ding, and they got like the track of the things that's supposed to simulate driving behind them that hasn't been done since probably the 50s.
With
like
people pushing on the car to make the suspension mounts, yeah.
What was your biggest surprise or disappointment?
So, it's hard to have anything be surprising because I didn't know what to expect. But I was very surprised at how good the second half was because of how awful the first half was. The first half of this movie, or even like the first
20 minutes.
Third, maybe more like first 35 minutes, were just like an awful turd. And I was angry and I hated the fact that I had to watch the rest of the movie. But the second half really pulled it out of the gutter and made it something at least enjoyable. And by the end, I was like laughing and having a fairly good time watching this awful movie.
Yeah. I was just surprised at the two. So you like, for how low budget this movie clearly was, that they were able to get Bette Davis and Christopher Lee, like pretty like well-known actors.
But was Christopher Lee really well-known then, or
I
was
think
it
he's
later?
I think he's always been a well-known actor.
Maybe.
But even just getting Bette Davis, who is like a huge actress, to do this low-budget movie. I mean, maybe everyone else was like, "You got too much jacked-up teeth. Like, we're not going to have you on camera anymore." I don't know.
Well, yeah. I mean, she didn't have a lot of options. It was probably a really good payday. She probably had some taxes to pay on her house. Like, I mean, she probably just needed a little bit of cash.
Yeah.
I mean, think about, Herbie Goes Bananas, I should say, is a year or two after this. I'm sure that, Our Lady and Dude had the same problem. Like,
that's true. And maybe it's just that, being in a Disney movie was like, at this point, like a good thing. At least like the live action ones were.
I think it was a paycheck.
That's what I mean. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, you took the paycheck, they used your good name, and you made a crappy movie together, and that was that.
Oh, come on. People were lining up around the block. They had to see the thrilling sequel to the Witch Mountain.
Return to Witch Mountain? Nothing about the title of this makes
Return
any
from
sense.
Witch Mountain.
Yeah.
Well, we haven't seen the first one, so...
Yeah, I guess so.
I think Witch Mountain is just where they live.
So the story holds no water. It is like every terrible 70s television show wrapped up into a ball and like their craziest story all in one stupid movie.
Yeah, the story was not good. It just needed more. Like, it just wasn't... I don't know. It wasn't very good.
Yeah, I mean, having his grand idea to be to hijack the plutonium plant to make money and notoriety was just
As opposed to, like, robbing a bank or something, like a normal person.
To get money and then get notoriety, yeah. He is a moron.
Yep.
Just, yeah.
Probably why he hasn't got notoriety yet. Because he's an old man. Like, he's like clearly just messing stuff up. I don't know what I was thinking this movie. I mean, obviously I had some idea.
I had no idea.
Well, so I knew it was like going to be these two siblings. I was pretty sure, and they had some sort of, like, I was pretty sure they were aliens, and they had some sort of, like, remember, because I was talking about it last week, I was like, yeah, there's like two kids and they're siblings, and they put their hands together and they have powers.
I didn't think they were aliens. I thought they were witches. Maybe.
No, I think they're aliens.
Oh no, they're definitely aliens.
But but that's what I was like. So I kind of knew there was going to be like a sci-fi sort of fantastical element to it, but I was not expecting
like X-Men
it's like
meets 70s weird LA.
Like
the only thing this movie was missing was Chips.
Yeah.
Eric Estrada and John Baker showing up and being like,
I just
pulling them over would have been hilarious.
Was not expecting like 70s child abduction,
molestation. We should have though, because that's what all the 70s were about, was just like abducting, molesting, killing. Like that's the whole thing.
Crush her, finish her. Just so upset. That was just like so. What? Like, this is a Disney movie? Like,
yeah.
What?
Yeah, it was a little dark, but strange.
So, any final thoughts about
Wow. That's my only thought. It's just wow. Like, I'm amazed by this movie.
I just hope the first one is better when we watch it. It's gotta be, right?
I'm gonna say it doesn't have to be. Because some of this movie was awesome and some of this movie was awful.
I hope it's better. What was your rating?
No, what was your rating? You're supposed to give your rating, I give mine, and then I give the Rotten Tomatoes rating.
Oh my god, I hate it. I feel like you change your rating.
No, my rating is written down.
I gave this movie a 32%.
Ooh, we are super close. I give it 39.
Okay. I don't know where you got that extra, like...
The extra 7,
no.
I really liked the end of this movie. I found myself going from the first 20 to 40 minutes of being like, I hate this movie, to really enjoying the end. I really enjoyed the end of this movie.
All right, fair enough.
It was fun, it was good, it was hilarious, it was stupid.
Had some crushing children involved in there.
Crushing children involved, yeah. I really liked it.
Dudes checking out chicks.
Right. So, what do you think the Rotten Tomatoes
Oh God,
score
I mean,
is?
it can't be good. Like, I don't know, probably like 57%.
So, with the critics, it's 50. It's 50-50.
Oh, okay.
With the people, it's 40. So, we're totally in line with the main thoughts of this. You think a little less of it. I mean, the 40%, me and the people are...
Wait, what was your rating?
39.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know what to expect out of any of these live action movies. Like, they're so random. Like, so random. Like, how do they even pitching these movies? They're like, oh, hey, like, I guess, was Walt still alive at this point? Or was he dead already? I think he was dead already, wasn't
he?
he?
Yeah, he was long dead.
They're like, oh, hey, head of Disney Studios. Like,
wasn't that his brother?
Well, this was produced by Ron Miller, who was, like, a producer for Disney for a long time. But, like, they were like, oh, hey, Roy, like, let's make this movie. Like, thinking about these movies being pitched, they're just so wacky. I just don't know how they got made. Like, oh, yeah, it's about these, like, telepathic, matter-moving siblings, and they're aliens, and... they're gonna go and take over a Pluto. Like, it's so... Oh, and yeah, we're gonna try to crush her at the end. Like, it just, like... These are supposed to be family movies. Like, it's just so weird. I don't know. It's just... I don't get it. So, I don't know. I have no idea what to expect. It's my favorite part. What number did we get?
291.
291. Okay, so is this the 2000s?
It is.
Did you already know what it is?
I do know what it is.
Is it live action?
It is not.
Oh. Animated 2000s. Okay, so it's either going to be like one of those super crappy ones that they made in there that like I didn't see, or it's going to be is it sort of animated or is it full animated?
What do you mean by sort of?
Well, like when we watched The Incredibles, you were like sort of.
Yeah, it's a sort of.
Is it Finding Nemo?
It is not Finding Nemo.
Oh, okay. What is it?
It is from 2006. It is Cars.
Oh, God. Oh, God. No.
Oh, boy. Y'all are in for a really fun podcast.
This is like
next week.
Planes, but maybe it's better.
Probably slightly better. But boy,
David,
just wait for a drunk, angry David.
it
for
has
Cars.
Larry the Cable Guy. It's gonna be bad.
Why am I warning the audience that
like the
next
only
week's gonna be dark?
good thing that's come out of
Because I'm gonna
Cars.
have to talk about Larry the Cable Guy. Get her done.
Ugh, God, I hate it. I hate it.
Oh boy.
Like, the only good thing that came out of Cars is the Cars Land and the ride in Disneyland. It's like the only...
I would argue that that's not good at California Adventure either.
The ride is fun. It's the Radiator Springs Racers where you're in the car.
Oh, Radiator Springs is rad.
Yeah.
But isn't that the same ride that the...
It's the same as Test Track.
Yeah, Test Track is better.
Well, yeah, obviously, but I'm just saying, like, it's... Like, and also...
Well...
And the whole, like, the whole, like...
No, I take that back. Radiator Springs is better.
Radiator Springs was awesome, and like the way they did like the Red Rock and the whole scenery, like that is really cool.
That is cool. I don't like the rest of the Cars theming in California Adventure.
Well, we've never seen the movie, so maybe this will be your new favorite movie. You could be like, oh my god, I love Cars. I can't wait to watch Cars 2.
It's entirely possible.
Although I am super glad we got the first one before we got like Cars 3, so we can like understand the context later.
It is good, but getting me past Larry the Cable Guy is going to be really like moving Mount Rainier.
There's no getting past it. It sucks. Like, it's the worst. No, it's terrible. There's a reason he didn't stay popular.
Yeah. Okay. So, next week will be Cars. In the meantime, if you'd like to follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at the Disney Movies, at the Disney Movies of the Hearts. You can send us an email at the Disney Movies at the Disney Movies at gmail.com. Sorry. Yeah, we really like to have subscribers. That's what I like most.
Yep, and please leave a comment or review. Those 5-star reviews really do help a lot, so we appreciate that. And yeah, share it with if you have anybody who likes Disney movies, likes podcasts, needs just some entertainment, some lighthearted entertainment. Yeah, you know where to find us.
Yeah, we keep it lighthearted. Definitely, if you have anything about the show you'd like us to change, or you think would like you to be different, please send us an email so I can laugh at you. And,
or if you have questions that you would like us to answer about any of these movies, you can do an AMA about any of the movies we've watched.
Yeah,
and
that is true.
We'll answer those questions.
And we highly encourage you to watch the movies with us because they are all fun, even in their awfulness.
Yes.
So in the meantime, this has been At the Disney Movies with the Hearts.
I'm Kelly.
I'm David.
Bye!
So,
what is happening? Oh, you brought ice in a towel. Okay.
Yeah, I'm smart.
I was like, what is happening right now? Why do you have a pot holder with ice in it?
I'm ingenuitive.